Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We'll let the stragglers come in. Just not sure how long this will run. And if we have any problems, I want to have a little bit of room there. Just for note, to everybody know, I'm going ahead and recording this meeting, so if you have a problem with that, I'm just letting you know. And of course, I'm being texted by. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and yeah. Sorry about I tried to put the link on the Google Meet link in the Facebook post, and boy, they don't like each other. Facebook would just say no, query failed or whatever, and I could not figure out for the life of me. I couldn't figure out any way to do it. So the only way I could get it was to put it on in a discussion comment. I'm glad you guys have found your way in. If somebody else is asking, please just send them the link, and we'll use that. Let me. Okay. Got a little. Whoop. Hey, I got game in the background here. Oh, don't we all? Let's see here. Excuse me, I've got one too many windows open. I'm going to close that one. Go back over here. All right. So thank you everybody coming. For those of you who have not come before, welcome. This is our after hours game development. I'm going to ignore that. Okay. And hi, I'm Lyle Shields. I'm a software engineer for Army Game Studio, and Nick Compton is also here. Nick, you want to introduce yourself? I mean, actually, sorry, he's in here. He's the lead artist for Verity Integrated Systems, and we're here to present to you, After Hours Game Dev Group. Austin's also in the group. I want to give credit to him. He is one of the creators of After Hours Game Dev, and he kind of left us for a while and came back. You're always welcome, Austin, if you want to stand in the front. But thank you for coming as well. And I'm going to skip them. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we need to do the meet and greet, Nick. I didn't really decide this, but I just want to first thank you all for coming out. It's been several months. I'm gonna come back to this. I should have put this here in. So I'm gonna first tell you guys why we kind of had a break there a little bit, and a lot of it came down to COVID-19. We really believe that the group, is really best face to face, but of course, with COVID and so forth, we couldn't do that. We couldn't really have a meeting group, and honestly, we were between Nick and I, we were so sick and tired of online meetings. There was just so many days. Getting the energy to get this back together was a bit of a problem. On top of that all, we just needed kind of a break ourselves. So I apologize that a little bit. It kind of went on longer than we expected, but yeah, we're doing a little better. We also had, there's some other things in the past with another office space and whatnot that's confused things, but I actually think we'll be okay. I think we've got the online meetings form now that we found Google Meets. It looks like that's going to work really well from what I'm seeing right now. We'll try this for a while, and you guys, of course, as always, give me feedback if you like. Like what you're seeing. If you don't like what you're seeing, just let us know. We can always change it out. There you go. Cool. Hey there. Somebody just joined. I didn't see who. Number 18. We got 18 people out there. Well, I guess 2 of them are me. So, anyways, and the short answer is, if nothing else, that time off has given us a chance to re-energize, and of course, we're ready to go again. I'm ready to go, and I'm eager to get us back on our monthly schedule, and we're going to start doing the things that we like best, and that's sharing games and game development and talking with you guys. So we kind of got a little bit at the end. We were getting, for me, I was getting a little confused on what what it's all about. After hours game development. We'd run our course, we'd done a lot of things, and so forth. But we kept trying to think. For me, I still like these concepts, and I have to admit, again, Nick and Austin hit it out of the park when they set down these basic rules. It's a group with the goal of fostering local video game creation and encouraging community, and that's to be informative, interactive, and fun. But again, it's about presenting the lessons that we have to help grow. It's about collaborating with each other, and that means networking, and investing yourself in the group as well. So yeah, we do a lot of presentations and stuff, and I'm always worried that, oh dang, we do so many presentations. You can just certainly do this on YouTube. Why do you need to come to us? Well, the key is it's about you guys. It's about you guys coming together, about us being in a local group and working together to get through our problems. Yeah, you probably could get a lot of this stuff out of just doing video after video, but it doesn't have that personal touch of being in a local group, and that's what it's about for me. Okay, so. Um, you know, you guys knocked out of the park. When you put these rules down, they're still good today. So I'm committed to doing that. I'm re-energized. I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to make a few changes, I guess. We're going to, I don't know. I haven't really talked to Next, but I'm pushing for basically making it every third Wednesday of the month. We have this rolling every 4-week thing. I don't know. It always bothered me for some reason. So for me, for scheduling, just think of it as once a month. Nick might overrule me on this one, so sorry, Nick. But we'll talk. But I'm aiming for every third one. Oh, sounds good to me. Thank you, Nick. So Google Meet and Discord, we're going to just use that for now. Of course, Google Meet will be for our live things here. Discord, obviously you can chat, keep going. Of course, and so I guess I guess I wasn't really thinking. Google Meet, I didn't realize they had a chat tool, to be honest. So obviously I was thinking that we needed that for chat, but that's okay. We'll chat in here or Discord. If you have any questions, feel free. I'm doing presentations right now at 7 p.m. If you guys hate that time, we can go back to 6. I think we had it originally at 6 p.m. Yeah, Discord. Okay, all right, okay. All right, we'll keep talking about it. That's good. Music fan. All right. Social. So the idea basically is we have a presentation at the first hour, and then we allow ourselves to have a bit of a more social hour. We're kind of doing this anyways. We'd have our meeting from 7 to 8, and that way we give you a nice presentation. You guys get out. If you don't want to hang around, that's fine. The presentation, the first hour, and the second half is more of socializing and talking with each other, or not if you don't want to. If you're busy, it's okay. Okay, Daniel. All right. So you're saying this is the best that you've ever seen it. Okay. But anyways, we still keep in touch with everybody through Facebook and Discord. Facebook mostly because that's where we started, and I guess us older folks actually kind of like Facebook as our main tool. Discord is great. I will agree that the video of Discord's great, and then just the text messaging is pretty cool. So I like it. I use both. As usual, we can always change that, but I think that's a pretty good mix right now. And as you can see, we've tried to at least linked it up so that if there is a Facebook post, you're at least aware that it's there and it's put on Discord. Some people have chosen more Discord, Facebook, and we just kind of duplicate back and forth. It's not the most efficient, but there we go. And of course, we've got to talk about the Global Game Jam 2021 that's coming up, and we'll be hosting that, and that's also another thing that we're kind of energized and eager to get back to. Obviously, with COVID, a lot of things have changed. So let me go on to the next page. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Global Game Jam. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. Just kind of, it's January 27th to January 31st this year. Just as a quick note, last year they had, for their 12th year, they had 48,700 jammers attending 734 jam sites across the world in 118 countries. Yes, I can read the slide. So yeah, that was a lot. We had 41 participants, and that's 12 games. That was a lot of good. We had a really good showing last year. I'd love to. It just seems like a shame, with COVID to have that all shut down. I'd like to see what we can do to make this as just as fun, even though we'll work in a remote kind of way this year. So please, sign up. Have a good time. But you're going to notice a few differences there. Mainly, it's not a 48-hour event. It's actually technically a 96-hour event. I mean, we might have snipped an hour here or there, but I put down a schedule where in 1 week, 1 week from today, at 7 o'clock, we'll do the same thing we're doing now. Looks like it's going to work. We'll meet up on Google Meet. And we'll get the theme, I think, is already presented earlier, but we'll go ahead and go through that. I'll make sure we have the video there. We'll talk about any diversifiers and so forms, and we'll form teams if we haven't already. I'm recommending, of course, people, if you have a team you want, go ahead and get together. We've tried to keep it very flexible through the years. We'll help you find a team. If you don't have a team, no problem. And just, Um, let's see what we can do. Anyways, but forming teams is always a bit complex, but we'll get you somebody. We'll work with you. We'll find somebody. So if we'll get if we can get enough teams. Never mind. Scratch that thought. Moving on. So then around about 8 o'clock, we'll kick off. We'll start building great games, and then notice 4 days later. You know, from Wednesday to Sunday, I'm going to say around 3 o'clock, I'm going to say, all right, upload your game to the Global Game Jam website now. Obviously, there's 4 days there. There's a lot going on in between there. A lot of us still have to work, so that's going to be a problem. But work whatever you feel. The whole reason that I guess they're doing the 4 days is to give as much flexibility as possible. When we first read that, it was like, hey, pick 48 hours, all right, in that time. And then there was a lot of confusion. And then they wanted to release the theme kind of at the same time. So, honestly, we're going to just keep it simple. You start at Wednesday, you end on Sunday, and you work as many hours as you feel. The main thing is get that uploaded. We'll try to get that done by 5 p.m. and then we'll do presentations on that Sunday at 7 p.m. We'll go through, talk about it, and show us your great games and use the screen sharing capabilities of again, Google or whatever you have. You can do. And of course, you'll be uploading your games there, so if people want a closer look at it, they can certainly download it and have a good time. So, so you guys have seen the slides before, and so yeah, they don't really apply anymore. So, it's 96 hours. We've talked for many of you guys. I know some of you guys are new, but we talked about how you break down your schedule, and here's a nice schedule. With 96 hours, it's a little more flexible, but I will remind you that's a bit deceptive. You still are going to have 96 hours, and it's going to feel like you have all this time. But if you're probably like me, you'll cram. You'll just kind of like, oh, I'll fiddle, and whatnot. And so it's more important, I think, for us to go over again. Here, if you're going to do the Global Game Jam, here's some pro jammer tips. Again, even though there's 96 hours, we still recommend you come in with all your software installed, ready. You have some ideas what you want. Go and definitely use the constraints, the theme, the time, the diversifiers that they give you. But you still want to find a game that you're in the core. In 30 seconds, you're ready. Don't make it simple. Keep it simple. Make it fun. Complete. So people aren't going to have a lot of time to play this game in depth. It's not time to do a really deep RPG or anything like that. Go and get the game loop working in 1 to 2 minutes, and just try to innovate on that one thing. Again, if you have stick to the known mechanics and your known platform, and then really lock down, avoid feature creep as much as you possible. Set that scope small. Play test it early and often. We're looking for the fun, and you only have you don't have a lot of time to find that fun. We want you to have fun. If you can find the fun, you're going to have fun. So, but of course, with 96 hours, maybe longer than 48 hours, but actually it's going to be a little more of a marathon because of that. I mean, if you start on that Wednesday, it's going to be you're going to at least be thinking about it, and still take your breaks, take care of yourself, get that sleep. And then when you do make your product, don't forget the little things like audio, music, sound. We've got people that are willing to help you there, and of course a little bit of tutorial goes a long way. Even if all it is like, okay, here's the 5 keys to your game. Get that on your title screen, a little help screen. Make it so that when you upload it to something, somebody can download it and they don't have to ask you a zillion questions. And by all means, utilize the free assets out there. Unity usually has a bunch. There's a lot of good stuff out there. We've talked about different sites. I didn't prepare well enough and give you a long list, but we'll get you more of those. And our personal opinion is avoid mobile, mostly because it's really just not worth it. I mean, you can certainly make a mobile game, but go and just use the emulator on the screen or so forth if you want to do that. And Nick, I see number 13 here. I don't remember. What was this? Nick says no fun. Don't have any fun? Is that what you're trying? I left it in there. I meant to ask you.
Yeah, no, I have no good answer.
Yeah.
Looks like
Yeah. It was
probably some sort of joke. I think is the year prior was when I was doing 3 different games, running around like a crazy person and running the jam. So probably that's why.
okay. Well, Nick says have no fun. I don't know. Have no fun. It's no fun if you aren't. Maybe you meant there's no fun if you aren't trying to keep it small and simple. So, anyways, um, moving on. Okay, and then just a quick moment. There's just a little quick cheat sheet here. Keep the scope small from the beginning. And this little chart kind of says it all. Can it be done quick and dirty? No, no. And then is it core to the game? Okay, yeah, it is kind of core. It's gonna, then by all means do it. But if it's not, cut it. Um, if it can be done quick and dirty, go for it. Have fun. Anyways, try to keep your time as small as possible. So let's see, and then you had to actually write down those goals for the next milestone so everybody knows what they need to be done. So yeah, when you work with a group, of course, keep that communication going. Now, hopefully, with the online, you can have your own Discord channel, or if you want, going where you're able to communicate. You know, maybe in some ways better than if you're face to face. I don't know, but at least have the notes there. So when you come in jury the next day, you're like, oh yeah, we were working on that. So take notes, share it often. All right. So with that, I'm gonna say, all right. Is there any quick questions about Global Game Jam coming up that I may have just totally forgot? I kind of threw these together a little bit more hastily than some days, but again, 7 o'clock next Wednesday kickoff. Any questions? Okay, there's the link on the Facebook page, and if you need the link, I didn't put the link. No, the link on the. If you need to please still join the Global Game Jam webpage if you're interested, and if you need to try to get on a team or something, let me know, and I'll help you out there. Okay. Any questions? Silence. Okay. Okay. So with that out of the way, we're going to do some presentations, and I decided to make just a random theme called Eureka. And it's basically for the January. Um, every once in a while you're working on something, you figure it out, and you want it's kind of new and exciting. So I kind of chose that theme. We'll see how close we get to it, but that's okay. We have 4 good speakers today, and I was by the way, I'm totally thankful that 4 people stepped up to give presentations today. We're going to give about 10 minutes each, and thank you for coming forward. So with that, I'm going to start, fortunately I didn't tell the lineup to everybody. So Ben, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind. Ben, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I had to find the mute button.
No problem. If you need to if you want to share your screen, just go ahead. If it's easier for you, or you can just say next slide.
No, this will work.
Okay.
So last year I picked up an engine called Pico 8. It's a wonderful little toy box, basically, that is something called a fantasy console. Could you go to the next slide? Uh, there you go. So it has a bunch of little features that kind of like emulate the like what other consoles do, but it's a self-contained thing on your PC. So you can make games, you can export them as cartridges, which are just a tiny image, and share that to share the full game and all the source code. The development environment is fully self-contained. You can make sprites and then put them in a map and then run your game all in real time. And everything about it is super simple. Uh, and it's emulating the hardware of like an 8-bit system, like the Commodore or something. Next slide. So it has all these limitations which restrict what you can do. You have a very small resolution and a limited color palette, limited sounds, and everything else on that list. Uh, all these limits make it a very fun product, fun engine to work with, because these limits, by restricting what you can do, it makes your work better, and it lets you work faster. Next. So this is something that I just hold to be axiomatic, is that limitations foster creativity. Uh, this is why like game jams will have themes, by giving you prompts and narrowing down what you can do. It helps you just think about what you want to work on. If you just had endless possibilities and could do literally anything, then it might be a lot harder to figure out something you want to do. But other things it can do is it can lead to, these limitations could lead to very stylized works. With the 16 unique colors and the very small resolution, anything you make in Pico 8 is pretty distinctly recognizable as being made with Pico 8. And if you stick with this kind of style and do many things with it, it kind of leads you to develop your own consistent and recognizable style. Uh, and so these limits are just not only really fun to work with, but they can help you become a better developer by working with these limits and in this space. But they also can help you go faster. Next slide. Because of the all-in-one workflow, you don't have to like alt-tab between Unity and VS Code and Blender or in anything else that you're using. No doubt you're going to have uh, a browser open debugging whatever is going wrong right now. Also, because of the low fidelity, you can run it on literally any machine. Uh, I worked for 3 months on my worthless laptop and was able to put out a game in that time, just because with Pico 8, uh, you can work a lot faster because everything is because you don't have to worry about so many other things, since you don't have to worry about anything, since the since there's so little you can do. You only have to worry about working with that, and you can do everything else with code, which makes it pretty fast. uh, and that makes it great for prototyping too. And you also get constant visible progress, which is great if you need help being motivated, because you can super easily export test builds and export GIFs to share much more easily than I ever could in Unity. You can just press a button and record the last X seconds of gameplay and then share that. Next slide. It does have a couple issues. Like accessibility, I think, is the biggest one, just because the default text is this kind of 3x5 font, which has some really hard to read letters if you aren't used to them. The M and the W are like good examples of this. That they look just like the N if you don't know that it's supposed to be an M. And you can make bigger fonts, but the trouble with that is that it uses more of the screen space, which is super valuable when you're using this kind of space. And then there's not really very good volume control either. So these are kind of workaroundable problems, but they're just not things that you have to deal with in other engines. And because of the fact that everything is in one file, it's not as easy to work in groups or to share source code. And debugging can be tricky if you're not used to this kind of thing where it's all instead of like having multiple files, each is responsible for like a single object. Uh, you have just a single linear line of code that executes everything all in one large loop. Which, if you're not used to thinking like that, it might be tricky to figure out. But it's a really cool platform to make some cool tiny things. And it's not just for games either. On the previous slide, there is a little animation. That is something called a tweet cart, which is a cartridge, but the code that produces it is small enough to fit in a tweet in 280 bytes. So you can find the code that is used to make this. You can put it in your own Pico 8 and do nothing else, and you'll have that same animation playing. And all of it is small enough to fit in a single tweet, which is really fun to work with. Um, and a lot of those, some of this reality check stuff, you don't even need to worry about unless you're making something big enough that it wants to become that it becomes a concern. If you're just making like little small things, you don't really need to worry about commercial viability or anything.
That's very cool. So would you say that the fact that you were forced to work with such a small thing may actually transfer over to you working on other platforms as well? When you say when you're not doing Pico and you say if you I don't know Unity or Unreal or one of the other engines, would you say that really has trained you to have a different eye now for game development?
Um, Maybe a little bit, but it's less of having a different eye. I think it's more of just you. It gives you a couple set of skills that you wouldn't usually need in other environments.
Hmm.
Or maybe it teaches you new techniques that you can use and can just supplement it. Like when you have such limited colors and space, maybe you can try something like dithering, which is where you overlay patterns of two colors that to make it kind of look like they're blending together. And that will create a cooler stylistic choice.
Okay, 1 second. All right.
What language
Okay,
did you use, or
go
did
ahead.
the
Uh,
presentation use?
Pico 8 uses Lua scripting, which is a bit different from anything else I've used because there's no semicolons and everything is weakly typed. So you can have a variable which stores a function and then you can later assign a boolean to it and do whatever you want. Uh, and that's part of why it's so easy to do things fast rapidly, but you have to be just a bit careful that you don't mess anything up more so than in other languages.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for bringing that to our attention, Ben. It looks like a really fun language. I love the idea of the fast iterations. We do have several other presentations, so I'm going to move along. We can save more questions. If you guys think of questions towards the end, we can always certainly loop back as time is available. Thank you, Ben. This really is really exciting. Um, let's move on. And by the way, yes, I've seen Pico, and I have to try it out sometime. I just haven't gotten to it. I have been very excited about it. Okay, and we're going to move on to our second presentation, and following with our Eureka theme. Leon Kennedy, it's Kennedy, right? Yeah, okay. He's going to give us a presentation on stylized textures. And I believe you're going to share your screen on that one, correct, Leon?
That is true. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead and take it from me when you're ready.
Okay. Wait. A tab, a window, or my entire screen. Yikes. Let me make sure I have nothing in the air or anything up.
Yeah. I'm always a little paranoid too.
Okay.
I'd recommend the whole screen just this time, but your call.
I can pick one screen. Okay, that's great. Okay, cool. So, my name is Leon Kennedy. I am a graphic designer and 2D, 3D artist. Today we're going to go over, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so it should look like a toaster on Blender.
Looks like a TV. Yes. Oh,
Okay,
but,
well, So, so today, we're just going to go through this really quickly. I know I only have 10 minutes. Last year, maybe about last year, I decided that I was going to pick up Unreal Engine from start to finish and build my own action brawler. So I have to do everything from modeling, animation, script design, all of that, VFX. Very ambitious, but something I decided early on was that I didn't want to do hyper realistic because personally I'm not a fan of it. So I had to do research on like what does stylized mean, and there's things like Dota 2, Blizzard, and League of Legends, and Zelda, Breath of the Wild. So all of these games have their own unique stylization. But something that they all do is that's consistent is that everything has really large bevels, and so you'll notice how round and like soft this looks. And they sort of find what makes an item an item. For this presentation, we have this really cool printer, toaster actually here at the house. So it's like, cool, I'll just make that sort of stylized. So that's part of the steps is doing research and knowing the end goal for whatever you're modeling. If it's a high poly model, if you're doing like television or video or that sort of thing, you don't really need a low poly model. So you can just high poly and just throw it in the scene. Processing power is pretty cheap these days, so you don't have to worry about that. In a game environment, though, you do. So I did my research. I was like, okay, this is going to end up going, somewhere. So I did this. I have a low poly version that I did in Blender. Let's see. And then I took it into Substance Painter, which is the software that I did the stylization in. Okay. So a key thing that you'll note right now is that all of my UV islands are square, and that was done intentionally. Well, almost all of them was done intentionally because you want to remove anti-aliasing and artifacting, and so your model, in whatever system it uses, won't give you really ugly artifacts. So Substance Painter is really powerful if you have a high poly sculpt. If you have a high poly sculpt and a low poly mesh, you can literally, take it. This is the place where you'd select the low poly and then bake it. So I'm going to actually take us back to just the discard to the default. So like this is just the low poly sculpt in there. And if I need the high poly, because I don't have one, right? And the high poly sculpt is just one with thousands. I think my high poly sculpt is 24,000 polygons on the high version. And then on the other one, I think I only have like 300 or 400. So that's much lighter on processing power. Anyway, getting a bake out is really easy. I know like a lot of other softwares, it can be complicated or tedious, but literally it's just click of a button, and it bakes out your normals, your world space, which is just like where a polygon is in space, your ID, which is like what is the material, ambient occlusion, curvature, and position. I don't really use thickness, but I guess if I were doing something like hair, I would probably use thickness. Anyway, so what we're going to be doing is getting a stylized texture. So stylized texture is basically comprised of 3 different parts. Let's see. So those 3 different parts is your base color and color variation. So the solid base color that the entire object is, and then subtle sort of painterly textures that underlie it. A light to dark gradient, and so this is really, you see this a lot on character designs where things near the head are lighter than the things near the feet because the focal point is mostly on the chest and the face and the shoulders and the hands and that sort of thing. And finally, a bevel highlight. So all of your highlights have a sort of glow. So I'm going to take you guys really quickly on the process of creating that in Substance Painter. I don't know how many people actually use it in their workflow, but you can adapt this to Blender pretty easily to do what I'm doing in this process. And then all of the files that Substance Painter exports works in Unity, Unreal, Blender, Marmoset, Octane render, whatever you need. It'll go. All the files that Substance creates will go into there really easy. So I just sort of already created a folder structure. And what's cool about this is if I create this in a really parametric way, then I can literally drag the folder down to my shelf down here. And then every time I need to texture another prop, I already have like a structure that I can just like change the colors in or whatever, and it'll make my life so much faster and easier. So to get started, we're going to get the light and dark gradient, or the base color. I can show you guys what I did here. It's a fill layer, and fill layer is this paint bucket. And a lot of your colors, you want to make sure that you're only using the color and select the color. So luckily I had a reference, so I just grab that color. And be mindful of the lighting situation and whatever your scene is. So grab the color, and then boom, that's it. I can turn that off. So if I want to add color variation, all I do actually is duplicate this layer. Let's say duplicate layers, and I'm going to add a black mask. And so now it's completely invisible. I can show you guys. Let's see. Let's change this to like this color. Sickeningly red. So I add a black mask, and that's going to turn everything that invisible. And then I'm going to right click with the mask still selected, add a generator, at the generator. And this is what's really cool. Everything is like parametric and procedural. So then like for this, you can use like Perlin noise or simple noise or whatever. I prefer the grunge texture, so probably grunge rust. So now we can see sort of this mask, this red is interacting with the original blue. Let's see, we can adjust this, blah, blah, blah. And then just, put it back to a reasonable color. I don't know, something like that. Whatever your art direction is, whatever your concept art is going to influence your colors. Anyway, yes. So the next thing is to get the light and dark gradient. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Didn't check at the time. So what I'm going to do with this is in this folder, there should be, let's get rid of this here. I'll just delete this. Make a new folder. We're going to call this light to dark gradient. Really important to label your things, your layers. We're going to grab this. We're going to fill it with white. And if I'm moving really quickly, there is a step-by-step document that I have posted in the chat earlier, and you can follow along with me. I also posted or published the assets, so you get the blend file, and you get the high poly and the low poly sculpt. Well, it's not really a sculpt, it's just a high poly model. And so, if you want to experiment and take a look at my folder structures, you can definitely do so. Anyway, so for the light to dark gradient, we are going to make sure that none of these are turned on. We're going to turn this all the way to white, blinding white. Then we are going to add a black mask. Everything uses a black mask. And this is what's really cool. So we're going to add a generator. And so because we baked out those maps, remember I mentioned the world space map. So Substance and just about every other software understands where the polygon is in a 3D space. So there's a generator on this one called a 3D linear. And what this does is applies a gradient from top to bottom. If you want to preview what that gradient looks like, you hit and hold Alt and click the icon. So we can see that it goes from top to bottom really easily. And this is sort of the technique that they use for characters in Dota 2, and in Blizzard they have a light to dark gradient from top to bottom. Anyway. So we have this gradient. It's on normal right now, so it's overpowering the previous layers. So if we turn it off, we can see our original color. So when you're going to come over here, I like, let's see, is it soft light? And then I adjust the opacity. But, all of this is just a matter of preference and art direction and like how strong you want this subtle gradient to be. But let's see, 77 works. Okay, and the final thing is a gentle glow to the outlines. So this is just to make things pop, and sort of like when everything is like, if you go to a kitchen or something, you go in your kitchen, every item has its edges that you can really cleanly see. So this is just more of a subtle effect to sort of increase the contrast between different objects if they're stacked on top of one another. So to do this, once again, keeping it nice and organized, we're going to say highlight. And in this, we're going to, once again, fill. And so what's great is since we're using all of these, we're using fill layers as opposed to like textures or like painting onto it directly. It's universal. So this fill layer will work whether I'm working on a character, whether I'm working on a prop, or whether I'm working on a vehicle. And so then I can just create a procedural sort of tool that I can just apply, and my whole world sort of like unifies in look because I've been using the same tool. So for the highlights, it depends on what your base color is, but just to keep things simple, I'm just going to fill this with white. Remember to turn off these other lights or these other features, make this white. And then we're going to add a black mask and add a generator. And for the generator, we are going to select mask editor. So this is really cool. Let's see, mask editor. And this is where we get sort of control over some of these maps that we've already have. So like our IDs or ambient inclusion and that sort of thing. So I like to, first things first, turn my global contrast up to like 0.4. And you can already see sort of this lightening done on the edges. To really turn that effect up, you take this curvature property and you just turn it all the way up. Or, I mean, you know, adjust to whatever your art direction is. But, I mean, let's see, 0.75 looks good. And then I'm just going to add a level. No, I'm going to add a filter. And the filter is going to be sharpen. I'm just going to sharpen this up. Yeah, that looks about good. Okay. And so now we have sort of these edge highlights. And once again, this is really, really strong. So come over here, maybe soft light, adjust this down. What is that, 40? It looks good. Now we have sort of this stylized, textured. You know, if your entire world is sort of made in this really similar style, everything is cohesive. And like there is I did include the final one, so you can take a look. So I added like the chrome bits and the like rubber stopper trim down here and the button dials that are over here. I did not add a little handle, but whatever. And so that's basically it. Like, so now if I need to make an entire kitchen, like, you know, I have this folder structure that I can just apply to like a chopping block and everything will just sort of fit together cohesively. I guess that's the end of it. I know I went through really quickly, but there was, yeah, there's the step-by-step in the chat. And are there any questions?
So once you have a style that's kind of just defined this way, would you say that you can easily repeat these settings and all the objects in the world and get them to match like that?
Yeah, so that's what some of these, they're called smart materials,
Mm-hmm.
and they're over, and so like aluminum will work irrespective of what model it is. So it already has all of these presets, and so if I make a whole library, I mean, clearly it comes with its own library, but if I make it my own library for my own works that say metal is supposed to look like this, and wood and plaster and that sort of thing, yeah, then everything just becomes a breeze. And especially in Unreal, where it has integration, so it can take literally Substance Painter files, and then you can have the controls to like control roughness or shininess in Unreal, so you can very quickly get like an entire map done or an entire scene done.
Okay, was there somebody, I see some chat going on. Was there another question out there that may not have gotten picked up by the microphone? Daniel?
It's really soft.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and we'll repeat it for you if you need me. The link to the step-by-step guide, can you, is that, I think
yeah.
I think it's scrolled off the top there, Leon.
So,
yeah.
Quick question actually for Leon.
Go ahead.
Why did you choose to go with so much dead space in your UV layout?
Oh, well, this this was a quick and dirty sort of presentation. If this was an actual one, I would probably shove more props onto this UV space.
Gotcha.
I don't have a question, but just wanted to say, once you have that folder structure set up, you can then just drag it into Smart Materials and convert it to a Smart Material, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how you can just
Yeah.
turn whatever when you've got a workflow that works.
Yes, exactly. So I started a plaster one, and I have just a bunch of like wall environments that I've been working on. And so when I'm like, oh, this wall, like a very plain, simple, flat wall, will just look like the rest of the plastered walls in the city. So it's really easy for me to just like white box an entire level, apply the material, and it's like, okay, I can see that this is working.
Okay. Well, Daniel, you're very light. Can't quite. So I
It's probably trying to run through my Oculus. Hold on. It's messing up. Go back up.
oh, okay. Well, while he's doing that, any other questions at the moment? The funny thing is the closed captioning is actually picking them up. Mark 1 for the closed captioning. Closed captioning. Closed captioning.
And up slow, you can get the. All right, so I've been thinking about using Substance Painter for a few years now. And then when they started deciding they were going to go to Adobe, I hand paint all my textures. PDF. Now, one thing that I'm looking at, seeing what they're doing, how much actual control do you have over your shading techniques and everything like that? Is it all on random noise, or can you actually manually change?
So you can actually. So I just did. This is for like props and background stuff, but if you wanted to hand paint, like a layer, you absolutely can make a paint layer and just like literally paint on the substance, on the texture. And it handles seams pretty well too. So I'm painting over a seam right now. Um, that was just, of course, if you want to paint really lightly and do like the hand painted style. Um, And then you can also load in your own procedural textures. So I've done like my own brushworks using Photoshop brushes to make like a painterly texture, and then loaded it into Substance. So you do have a lot of control. You can do just countless layers. I need a subtle, especially for like reptile skin comes to mind with how many subtleties that are built into that. Or like
I know when
skin.
you take your normal off of the high poly mesh and you're actually converting it to that low poly mesh, I always have to take that normal and touch it up inside Photoshop. Now, when you create that normal in Substance Painter, do you have to go in and clean it up with Photoshop?
I did not, but that's because I have done this workflow, so I know what Blender is going to do to the model, spitting out a high and a low poly, and then sort of I just intuit, okay, this is going to be a problem spot. So like problem spots in this model were the curves on the bottom of this toaster. So I was like, I'm going to, for my low poly model, just pull the edges out a little bit farther for the cage to be easier for Substance to get a good render out.
Okay.
Any other questions?
yeah, we're gonna have to move on.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for presenting, Leon. Yeah, just a quick note, Leon has helped us in the past when we needed to support the local hackathon. He helped do some presentations on the tools there, and that was I want to again thank him for helping us in the past there. We're gonna now move. Let me resume presenting here. I'm on the wrong screen though, so I'm presenting. You probably got you probably got like a mirror effect. 1 second, please. There we go. All right. We're going to move on now. We're going to move over to the programming side now. Patrick is going to give us a presentation on object pooling for high quantities of objects within Unity 3D. You ready for us, Patrick? Do you want to share your screen? You want me to just hit slides for now?
I can. I actually do want to share my screen if I could.
Yeah, go ahead. Just say you
yeah.
are presenting.
I would like to present the window. Share now. I would like to present. Is there one with this old my left screen? What the heck is this?
All new to us. We're probably going to run a little late tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and just let you guys know up front. I'll try not to be too crazy, but
All right, can everyone see this screen?
we do. Go ahead.
All right, so hi, my name is Patrick Phillips. I am a robotics software engineer here in the Huntsville area. I have 6 years of casual experience of game development, more specifically with Unity 3D. I've worked on other game engines before and other things like that. Frameworks, for example, we did the group projects with Cocos 2D. That was a pretty interesting learning experience. I have lots of zombie projects where I usually get about a fourth to a third through, and then I just drop it because of either work stress or I just can't finish it. Finish it. Something I've been trying to work on for the past bit. I've been doing game jam since about 2015, and think about the second game jam that you guys hosted actually was the one I actually first got in on. So the problem is that you imagine like this analogy is going to sound kind of rough, but imagine you're a bear, you're hunting, you want some fish. It takes a lot of effort, to grab all these fish, and imagine these fish are like Unity objects, right? And it's just hard, man. You're reaching out, you grab them, it takes time. Wouldn't it be lovely if there was a place you can just reach in and get them and become a nice fed bear? Well, lucky for us, there's a concept where we can front load pretty much game object loading and unloading for us, and that's the object pool. Object pooling is pretty much where you take a heavy, thing, and then the thing is initializing, where there's a lot more perceived leniency. For example, during loading screens or other things like that, you kind of accumulate resources in the user's RAM, pretty much. And that's because accessing RAM locations is a lot faster if you don't ask the CPU to already do it. If it's a big object, for example, because that's one of the slowest aspects of game design is loading things into RAM. And then I'll give a live example here, just so I can do this pretty quickly. If you guys can forgive my analogy, I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to present a different window. Yeah. All right, can everyone see this Unity screen?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, cool. So in this Unity screen, I have a very simple sample app. I have a object that I have called my spawner. It has a spawn control script on it and an object pool. To show you guys the demo of it, pretty much when the scene loads in, you'll see that I generated 100 objects. I then toggle this, and roughly about half a second, I'm pulling the objects out of this state and throwing them in. So that's the first rough example of it. I can then go into spawner. I can change the interval. These are float. That's roughly 50 milliseconds of delay. I can set like 1 second, and I can run it again. And then every second it brings one up and slowly gets through it. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen now, and I'm going to show you guys my Visual Studio to again give you guys an actual idea of how this actually works. Actually, you want to show me your entire screen. I can choose which screen I show you, right? Yes, I can. Okay, cool. All right, so here's the boring coding stuff. So pretty much you have an object pool. So I decided to make these as private fields because I didn't want other instances accessing these objects and other things like that. Instead, I made it serializable so that way I and the editor can access them. On awake, I wanted to handle this as the scene loads in, not as the entity comes into existence in the Unity scene, because Unity does slow dynamic loading and stuff like that. And I build the pool right here. So the pool is really simple. It's literally just a list. Pretty much you're creating a database essentially of objects and kind of instantiating them somewhere. Doesn't really matter where they are, and then immediately setting their active to false. This is the cheapo way of handling this. And then you add it to the list. And what you're doing is you're instantiating it into the game engine, and then you're setting it to false, and then you're adding that reference into the list. And because it's a C#, this is a memory reference, and that is very fast to access. So I like to wrap things in fail-safe code. This is my trying to pretty much prevent things from happening. So pretty much I have a try-get method. Where I have out parameters like this. That might be a little advanced for those of you who are not into C# development. But pretty much for everything in the pool, if the item is not active in the hierarchy, I set the thing and I return true, telling the caller that, yeah, I found one. So then we go to my spawn controller to see an example of implementation. I decided to use a coroutine to handle the spawning of it. This one can be set to start, which is when the object enters into the scene. And then I use the pretty much the tag required component, which those of you familiar with the C# and Unity know, this will, as soon as you drag on this object into the editor, it will just automatically shove one of these object pools onto it. Very useful for development. Seeing that up. Some toggle things, and pretty much when I press the button, I call this thing to activate, and pretty much I spawn the entities pretty much in a coroutine. So you cannot use while loops inside of the main Unity thread, but you can do it with using coroutines. Coroutines use they use concurrency, not parallelism. So pretty much when there's a free moment, it works on the coroutines, and I enumerate a big list of enumerators. You can read more about that in Unity 3D optimization tips. The place where you want to use these object pools is you want to use them specifically in places where you're going to have heavy amounts of objects coming in and out of the scene, at least to the player. So a good example is bullet hells, places that have a large amounts of objects flying in and out of the screen, places where you have I don't know, I'm not gonna say particle systems, but like really roughed up particle systems, optimizations. We start getting into coding your own custom networking implementations. That's where object pooling gets really big too, and that pretty much sums it up. Any questions on when, why, how, purpose?
Okay, just a couple quick questions. Did you do any performance timing on this example to kind of see what type of difference it is? I know you're just doing spheres in this case, but have you sort of done a before and after, where you just created I don't know 50 or 1,000 instances regardless of the time, and calculated how much of a savings it was from coming out of the object pool instead of just being instantiated?
I have not done a metric like that, mostly because every time I try to mention if I should use instantiation, they only say you should do that very sparsely. It's similar to the idea of using get component. You're only supposed to use get component very sparsely because traversing trees can be sometimes expensive.
Well, the only reason I mentioned that is sometimes there are cases where, like, if you only need to instantiate 10 or so, or even 50 sometimes, there may be a level at which it's worth it. And it depends on if you don't do the metric of measuring it, you may create a bunch of extra code or headache that you might be concerned about.
It's true. This is something meant only for like when you need large quantities of things, like talking in the hundreds to or they're very heavy things that instantiating them in and out of the scene will be heavy on the people's computer.
Okay, and I'm assuming this in the second part of this question. Have you noticed if it helps with garbage collection, where having those objects running around?
They're not destroyed. Their lifetime is maintained by the object pool because Unity uses C#. Everything's a shared pointer, which means this only gets destroyed when I either tell the garbage collector to dispose of it, or if the runs out of scope on all references.
But your pool has to be big enough for all the objects, or you're just shoving it in there after the initial size.
I haven't really implemented. This is just an example. This you can go crazy with it and add like expansions and contractions and all other stuff. So
Okay. So you're just limiting it to the pool for this example. Very good.
anything else?
Anybody have any other questions? Make sure I didn't lose anything. Okay. Well, thank you for presenting object pools. It's actually a very important optimization technique for a lot of projects, and then in some cases, it's you have to do it, or else you will just your game will come to a fall, particularly in the bigger systems such as Unity and Unreal. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Patrick. Okay, we're going to now move on to the fourth presentation. If you don't.
Do you have to give up presentation?
I don't think so. I think I can resume and take over, since I am master of the presentation. I'm going to move over there. Okay. And I'm going to get past your slides that I put in here. And Ryan. Is Ryan here? Uh-oh. I think Ryan got left off. Okay. No problem. I knew I was forgetting a name. Okay, well that's okay. We you know, we're running a little later, but that's okay. Let's see. I'll have to figure out what happened to Ryan. Hope he's okay. Austin, would you like to? We have a slot available here. I was hoping Ryan would sneak in, but Austin did have some information he wanted to share with us as well. Why don't you go ahead and you got your screen there to share, Austin?
Yes, I do. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it'll present entire screen. And share now. And oh, let me know when you got it or no.
I do not see it. Try again.
You got nothing. All right, let's see what we got here. And here we go. Share. Bam.
There you go, sir.
All right, fantastic. So in the last year, I discovered TriJam. The first time I discovered it, I was actually in San Francisco the night of the the San Francisco lockdown when the game developer conference was supposed to be happening. I was actually there. Didn't get sick, but I met the guy who runs it. It's pretty cool. The event happens weekly, and for me and my schedule, something that takes 3 hours to make is like I think less time than a movie, right? So it's pretty fantastic. So I wanted to tell you guys about that. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool idea and pretty easy. So what it is, it's a 3-hour game jam, and you can start working on it as early as Friday morning at about 4 a.m. You have until Monday morning at 4 a.m. to turn it in, and then the following week, other people play your game and give you feedback. So it's a fantastic way to kind of quickly work through something. And for those moments when you just want to complete something and finish something, because for me, like I enjoy the 48-hour global game jam. It's good and great, but sometimes I don't want to give up 40 or 36 of my 48 hours, and I can do an hour on Friday, an hour on Sunday, an hour on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I've completed a game and participated, and that's a lot of fun. So that's the what behind it. Why, like I kind of mentioned there, fast iteration, low commitment, and it lets you kind of explore into some areas, right? You get to kind of see like how much can you really make in 3 hours, right? And so you kind of have to figure out like how much you're going to commit to like sound, like how much, and then like music and audio, art assets, and then the design and developing process. And so for me, the guy I teamed up with did the art, the sound, and he and I worked on the design, and then I did the code implementation. So that was a lot of fun. So highly recommend it. And then how, like I mentioned, keep the teams small. Do real simple designs. I think most of the games, including my own, were a simple one-page game where I did like a small kind of a snowplow rescue game. Super easy. You can sign up if you want to do this TriJam. You can sign up on trijam.itch.io. Super simple, super fun weekend. And every week they've got voting for the theme. I think like this I forgot what the theme for this week that voting is, but you vote. You can sign up for the that weekend's jam. You submit it, and you get reviewed. You get feedback. So something that can be missing from much kind of larger things like the global game jam is critical feedback on like how interactive, how fun, like how well did everything kind of mesh together. So that's something that I really appreciate about this jam is that A, it's low commitment, but also two, you have people that play your game and give you feedback, and you also play other people's games and provide feedback. And usually it's a small turnout. Usually they have anywhere from like 5 to 10 games, so it's small and there's a little community there. Um, and yeah, I did it one weekend and I had a really good time. I plan on doing it more in the future. And it works well for me because I can do 1 hour on the evenings once the kids go to bed. So it's been a real blast. And I would encourage anyone who's even mildly curious if you can do it. Yeah, go ahead and give it a shot. It's just 3 hours. So that's what I would, that's my presentation.
Oh, yeah, I'm still open. Sorry about that. Cool. That sounds like a great way to get, when you got that jam fix, you can do that. And they're doing. And you said they're running that
Every weekend.
every weekend. Wow.
Yeah,
And 5 to 10
weekend
games every
is,
weekend is pretty good. I have to say that's pretty amazing.
yeah. I think this weekend is like the 100 and let's see, the 100 and they're over 100 weekends in a row. I forgot. I was trying to figure out what the which one they're on, but yeah, they've been doing a really good job, and yeah, highly recommend it.
Okay. I'm getting notification that Brian is trying to connect. I don't know what that's about. I hope he has the right link. We had to let him know we changed that link out. Am I still presenting the screen? No. Just out of curiosity, am I still presenting a screen? It keeps telling me that I'm still presenting, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Nope, you're not presenting.
Okay.
I didn't. It's just, I mean, we can see your camera, but you're not like presenting your.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, there is one that says Eureka, the obvious stuff that you're presenting, but it's not in like presentation mode.
It comes up as two people when he's sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So his screen is still down there. I can see it.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you can actually see me flipping pages?
Yep.
For some reason
We
you're
can
not
see it.
enlarged anymore.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, I see. So it's a small screen. Gotcha. Okay. Guess I'm gonna have to make a judgment call here soon. Tell you what, I'm gonna assume Ryan's not gonna make it, so we'll get while we're waiting, so when you do a 3-hour jam like that, and I mean, you can spend so much time just trying to figure out what you're going to do. How do you guys get past that in 3 hours? I mean, it's just like
So they've got certain exceptions where the initial design, the brainstorming phase is not counted in your 3 hours. Whenever I do it, I do count it in my 3 hours because I like kind of being done with it. But their official rules is that the publishing is not part of the 3 hours, and then the initial design isn't part of the 3 hours. So it's really just 3 hours of essentially 3 hours of coding and debugging and so yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I just said they keep it to the core. Okay, that's very good. So there is some overhead time. So if people do want to get into that, go ahead and expect some of that time to also be for that. I see Ryan.
Oh, and
go ahead.
oh.
Go ahead. And
If you
finish.
do go over, you just have to kind of like comment on when you submit your game, you say, hey, this actually took like 4 or 5 hours. What you just kind of be honest with how much time it took, and people still give review and feedback, but like on your points, everyone gets points based on like, you just lose points on your made it in under 3 hours.
Hey Ryan, are you there?
Oh, yes. Sorry. That's some technical difficulties getting on.
Okay, it's
I'm here now.
at the risk of, are you guys okay? So anybody mind if we go along? This is a good time. I'm kind of excited to share. We're running a little late, Ryan. Any strong nays? If you're okay with it, I mean, I did try to schedule it 7 to 9, but it'll cut into our journal chat time. But any dissenters? Because I'd love to hear Ryan tonight, and he's got a 10-minute talk on that.
If you all want to, you can go ahead, but I may have to leave around now.
I understand. I am making a recording, so if you do not, I'll try to get it on YouTube for you guys later. But thank you for coming by, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. I had fun.
Okay. All right. Since I'm recording, I'm going to go ahead and let Ryan go ahead and present then. And I'm sharing your. Yeah, I don't know if you want to share your screen or if you want, you can just say next slide.
Yeah, I'll just say next slide.
Okay.
Again, hey, sorry, being a little late here.
No problem.
But, hopping in now, saving it, I guess. So yeah, my to jump right into it, my Eureka moment for 2020 was about some of the obvious stuff that it seems like people always say, but it's good to see in practice how it can really help you. So where some of these views are coming from. Hi, I'm Ryan. Designing, directing, and programming Potato Paradise Plus, and I work at Army Game Studio on a small team during the day. There's my Twitter handle there, and also my my wife Amberly recently joined me as a producer on Potato Paradise Plus, and she's a software engineer at Deal News. That's her Twitter handle, and that is our son's cute toy Owlboy. And I thought you'd see that, so move on from there. Yeah, so let's make a game. I love this tweet. Nobody told me when I was making a video game I had to make the whole thing. It's easy, right? You know, just make the whole game. Well, we have like a million things to do. And there's a good talk by Nick Lang from Siege 2020. You should check out if you want to see a really exhaustive list of the kind of things, especially like AAA games, need to do. But we're in these and we can cut some corners. But, you know, the difference is we got to make sure we're making conscious decisions, and it's not just a lack of oversight when we cut corners, right? So, next slide. So here's a typical game timeline, and you've probably all seen this kind of thing. We're going to go from a concept phase into the prototype, pre-production, production, and post-production. And it's important that we really enunciate this because it's easy to get stuck in the miasma of that yellow-red area for a long time and not realize you are making progress, right? So let's just jog through this as a refresher real quick. So let's hop through some quick slides. In the concept phase, what I like to do is write down like a list of values and promises. So things I want to exemplify and things I promise to the player or customers and things I want to deliver on. Come up with a few pitches and go with one of them. And that sometimes that takes a while. Prototype, you know, you might build something. It could be multiple things. Putting it in front of people, you're getting feedback, you're repeating the process, and this whole time, you're knowing that the design is not done. That's something you got to be conscious of, right? The next step in pre-production, this is when you're going to start to finalize that design, and you're going to decide on your team, your tools, your tasking, and it's kind of in the Edison style of figuring out, you know, 1,001 ways to not design and build a video game. And I like to kind of split this up mentally into like two distinct areas, which is like I'm charting the course and I'm prepping for the journey. So where am I going and what do I need to take with me? And one of my big Eureka moments of 2020 is like, this can take years, right? Like, especially you're working part-time. It's really easy to get down on yourself about how long you're, you know, oh, the game's not playable, the game's not done yet, but it could take you a really long time, that prototype step, pre-production, figuring out where you're going to go. And ideally, you finish this phase off with a vertical slice. And then from there, you go into production, which is honestly one of the easier steps because now you know what you're doing, right? And that's another big kind of Eureka moment is like, you know, this is actually, once you know where you're going to go and what you're going to do, producing the game is probably not that complicated depending on the type of game. Like for me, I'm making a visual novel. So once all the things are set in stone from a design perspective, the actual production of the thing is just putting in the work. So it's kind of refreshing to look at it that way and realize that even if you're several years in, you might still be in pre-pro and you're getting ready for this step. Then the finally is post-production, and I guess we'll figure that out when we get there. But I'm assuming we're going to launch it and fix lots of bugs and collect feedback and bugs and all kinds of stuff. So still making a plan for that. But that's just a rundown of where those are. So before really getting serious about solving production problems, before you kind of have a plan, I know for me at least, life was very stressful, with like over the shoulder tasking, like where, maybe I would ask Jess to have a task, and she's busy, I'm busy, we're not tracking it, and it's oops, it's been 2 months, and that happened all the time with everybody. Unrealistic estimates, like originally we would say stuff like, oh yeah, this game's going to be ready in spring of 2019. we'll be done. It's like, no, not quite. And then you have all these to-do list graveyards, your Trello board. Oh, it's out of date. Oh, my hacker plan is too. And that spreadsheet's out of date too. Yeah. So it's just kind of a mess. And I wasn't treating this as a problem. And I think that was the big eureka with my wife's help, was realizing in the next slide that this is just like any other, this is just like any other problem. This is like a programming task. It's just like a modeling task. You need to solve a very specific problem or set of problems to get your production on track. Otherwise, how do you know any of these things? How can you be sure, right? So key problems that I know I need to solve now, and I've taken some serious steps to solve, which is, how can we know how long things will take? How can we know when someone needs something, someone's blocked? How can we be aware of the state of the game at all times? How can everybody be tracking what the game's design is going to be? And it seems so obvious. People say this all the time, but until you really get into the practice of it, you don't realize that these are just as big as problems as, how am I going to render this? How am I going to make this system work? Right? Just as big, if not bigger, than those problems. And so we got to treat them with the same respect. And so breaking down each of those problems, the kind of stuff that we started to do in the next slide is for how long things will take. So, you can't know how long an unfinished design will take. And this was a hard pill to swallow for me. If you don't know what the game's going to be, you just can't know. You literally can't know. So if you have any open questions about the design, there's no way to know how long it's going to take. You can't even begin to try. So once you've finalized that design, or you've done a couple prototypes and you're pretty confident that it's going to be sitting in this particular area with the design, then you can start to break it down into bigger features. Like, okay, let's have a location selection feature in our visual novel. Maybe we can go different places. Okay, what does that need? Now we can break that down into some epics, or like really big tasks. Like, we're going to need a 2D map, and then we can break those epics down into smaller features and tasks. Maybe you want to phrase them like a user story. Like, as a player, I want more feedback when I click a button on the map. That is way easier to guess than how much time that's going to take, than if you started with the first thing, which is, hey, we need more locations in the game. How are we going to do that? No one can tell you how long that's going to take, because it's not a thing you can do, right? So now that you have it at this level, you can say, okay, adding more feedback to the button on the map would take me a week, and you can estimate that, and you can add that up. And if you go from the bottom up like that, adding them up, you realize, hey, there's a lot more work left. Maybe there's 3 years of work left, and like, we need to cut the map because that'll save us another several months, And tried a lot of tools for this, but Jira and Confluence have been my favorite. Again, kind of an industry standard thing. Seems obvious. They are free for small teams, but what I've liked about those two is they're integrated together, and you can really get into them, and it's at all the features for different stuff. So next slide, I think I have an example. Yeah, this is our roadmap. So these are all of our epics. So I've made a list of features. I broke those down into epics, and then each of these epics I have tasking and a rough timeline for, and even some things that kind of span the whole process, like business and other things that don't really fit in one spot. But breaking it up based off release, based off the epic that needs to go into that release, it's helping a lot. It's really helping us track what's going on. It's making me feel a lot more confident the game's going to get done. So next slide. And then how do we know when someone needs something? we just got to communicate about it a lot. And Discord has been great for this. And we have a Discord for after hours, so a lot of you are on it. I think making a Discord for your team is great. Being able to just be like, hey, what's going on? Having open communication. And then also always having tasking records people are working on. Because even if someone's working on something and there's not a task yet, just make one. Just write it down. There's no reason not to do it. It seems like it's tedious, but if you just write it down and you realize later, oh, that's what that person was working on when I got distracted for 2 weeks and haven't looked at the game, especially as a part-time person, having this stuff written down is crucial. So next slide. And then, what is in the game? How do we know? Well, again, Confluence was great for this. Writing design docs to be clear, concise, and all-encompassing, and then having everyone have access to them, right, at all times. So we used to use like Google Drive and Google Docs, and those are like editable in weird ways that don't really support this kind of thing. It's really easy to just have like a wiki space web page kind of situation where you can just have it written down and refer to it. And then when you change it, you can get on Discord and say, hey, I changed this. Is that going to affect anything? Or I'm thinking about changing it. So that's kind of my Eureka moment. I think I have one more slide that's just a wrap up. Yes, this all seems very obvious, but it's like when you put this all together, my Eureka moment was like, wow, those are corners I can't cut. Those are things I really need to do. And it helps us go from stumbling around in the dark to actually finishing the game, like that tweet said. So I think they're worth doing. And actually applying the stuff everybody always says is neat. So that's my spiel. So thanks.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for presenting that insight. I know you guys have been working pretty hard on Potato Paradox there, and sounds like a little bit of growing pains that has happened through the year, but it sounds like you guys are getting a real good handle on that. Anybody have any other questions for Ryan since he's been going through this process? Yeah, George saying that's great.
More an acknowledgement of the idea of trying to eliminate zombies out of my existence, pretty much.
Yeah, it's really easy to get wrapped up on the axle
there
without this kind of stuff, I think. And I was there for a long time, so.
Yeah, I think sadly many of us have been there. I mean, even yeah, even I've got some that VR project I was worked on. I kind of got ahead of myself and I lost track of it. So it hits me right to the core of what you're saying exactly through this. I mean, until you start, I agree. Until you have that big picture, you're always going to be a bit lost.
I think this even happens professionally too. Like even in people's day jobs, full time. It's really easy to get lost when you're part time, but even full time, people have to be reminded, like, hey, there's a bigger picture here. We're working towards something. Let's talk about it. Let's make sure we're tracking.
Yes.
So definitely useful stuff.
So do you use like the number of tasks in an epic that have been completed versus not completed to kind of give you an idea of how long it takes at this point? Is that kind of your metric for a lot of things?
Yeah, so that's kind of what the roadmap shows there in Jira, which is nice. So that's been a cool feature. It can kind of give you a rough gauge. I mean, obviously that's not got the time on there, but it is nice to have that that ability to sort of say at a glance, this is nowhere near done, or this is not even started, or this is halfway done. It's a neat little.
I would think it gets a little depressing sometimes, though. Working part time on it, though.
Yeah, having it written down at all though has been so like motivating. It's like, oh,
good.
A limited list of tasks to do, and then the game is done. It's not just infinite work, which is what I felt like it was.
Okay, great. Any last questions from anybody else? Okay. All right. Well, we've been running over, so I think we're getting to the end here. Okay, these are a couple filler slides. Just a quick reminder, January 27th is a Global Game Jam. Again, I just put the slide in twice. If you need any of this information, just ask me on Discord. Again, we'll kick it off like we sort of did tonight in 1 week, 7 p.m. We'll use the same system. Hopefully everybody can make that. Please sign up if you have not done so already. And then just to also let you know, next meeting will be in, I'm just setting it to the third Wednesday of the month, so that's February 17th. Again, do you guys okay with 7 p.m. or you prefer earlier? You know, each person's different on that. I'll try. I'll do better making sure we stay within the hour. And I'm playing around since February 14th around the corner there. I figured why don't we do some game design love for a theme or topic there. So if you've got some ideas, please come forward, and we'll try to keep some short presentations on that. So I guess what I was thinking there is like, game design patterns we love is maybe the longer term. So if you got any of that, that'd be great. That's all we have for today. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Again, I'm going to try to get this up on YouTube somewhere, so if there's some piece of that you want. Of course, as usual, there's a Discord channel. Feel free to let us, feel free to ask questions there, and if you have any questions. With that, and I'm going to conclude the meeting, and I'm going to thank everybody for coming. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm going to leave the channel open here for the next till basically 9. So if you guys want a free talk, that's fine. I won't be recording it. I'll go ahead and hit stop on that. But yeah, if you guys have anything you want to share, anything you want to do, that's what the second half is for. I know normally we'd just break off and talk, in the wherever we're meeting, but of course we don't have that. So I'll just leave this open, and anybody wants to chat, go for it. So let me hit the cancel on the sharing and whatnot. All right. Yeah.